this video, I'll be walking you through the basics of judging for the Atlanta Urban Debate League. Before each tournament, there will be an live in-person judge training, so not to fear. Any questions that you may have will be addressed during that session. But for now, I just want to thank you, as we always do, for volunteering to judge with us. It really isn't possible to host any of these tournaments without your efforts. And finally, to calm any nerves you might have, that like with any of our young debaters in their first rounds, you will feel so much better and feel so much more competent in being a judge for us after you've had your first round. So now for the basics. First, what you're about to see is policy debate, which is a competitive speaking event that's also in pairs, partnerships, 2-on-2. They debate a year-long resolution that they spend a great deal of amount of time learning about. And even though you are not an expert, you are serving for them as a reasonable adult in the back of the room who can take notes and understand some of the kind of general functions of what's being argued and played out in the round. You can then give them some important feedback about connecting with an audience, because at the end of the day, this is a public speaking event, and you will likely be the only person in the room who's not debating. And so you are their audience. If they convince you, then they've won. If they don't, then they need to adjust to their audience a little bit more. So in this 2 versus 2 debate format, there will be an affirmative team that will give a plan as to how to address the topic or the resolution for the year. They will put forward reasons why their plan will help avoid some kind of challenges in the present, or various negative impacts that are going to happen without the plan. The negative team will respond to them by saying all of the things that they can find wrong with doing the plan and preferring to continue in the status quo as things already are without going forward with a new plan of action. Each speaker will speak twice. They'll give an opening constructive speech and a closing rebuttal speech. In between the constructive speeches will be time for cross-examination, in which one team will have the ability to directly ask questions, and hopefully you'll get some clarity. Everybody in the room will get some clarity about what's happening. Not to worry about following any of the kind of ordering of the speeches at the times. The debaters will know how and when to speak, most likely. And also at the bottom of the cheat sheet that you'll receive about judging before the tournament begins, we'll have a breakdown of all of the information about how long speeches are, depending on which division you're in, and who speaks when. When you receive your judge assignment, you will be told which room to go into and which team is debating and which debaters for each team. Your job is to go as soon as possible to that round so that we can keep things moving at a quick pace and get everybody home on time. You'll arrive at the room. Hopefully the 4 debaters will be there waiting for you. You will need to ask which team is which, and you will also need to ask which debater will be speaking first from each team. Because in addition to being a team event in which there's a winner and a loser, there's also individual speaker awards. So you need to know which person is which so that you can give them speaker points at the end of the round. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. So once you know who's in the room, the debate can begin. So your job is to keep time on your phone, most likely, or we have timers for you if you need one, so that just in case they go over, you can tell them that they've reached their time limit. But more likely than not, they will not use all of their time. And that's important also to acknowledge, because if they don't use a minute of their speech, that's a minute where they could be making more and better and more in-depth arguments, and it's something worth telling them. So keep time. Moderate the debate if you need to. If only really if things kind of go off the rails or people are being very disrespectful, you can guide them back to where they should be. You should take detailed notes, or notes that can help you follow what's happening. These are only for you. No one else will see them, so do them in the manner that you see fit. They will know that they should also be taking notes so that they can respond to the arguments that the other team is making. And finally, you'll want to just be as engaged and critical listener as you can be. You want to try your best to follow what's happening so that everyone can feel as though they have a good grasp and a good adjudicator for the round. So try your best to be engaged, critical in the way that you're understanding what's happening. What sides are most persuasive to you and why? What do you wish would have been done better? What do you think has been done especially well? Once the debate is over, you'll give feedback to all the teams, both the teams at the end of the round. You will not tell them who won or lost. They will find that out at the end of the day when they read your ballots and when they receive awards, but we find it best that we don't disclose winners and losers in these rounds. So tell them what they can improve upon, tell them what they did very well, give them some pointers so they can improve for their next round, but do not disclose. So you're probably asking yourself how it is that you decide who won a round. We have a good way that we teach these debaters to make good arguments, and it can be helpful for you to understand that and follow that if you like, but also know that however you make your decision, you are the person who's been persuaded, and so that is often enough. So trying to decide which arguments are the most important for either side. When we think of good arguments, we try to think of them in terms of having three parts or three components. One is an assertion, kind of making a claim. Having a reason to back that up is the second part. They need to not only make a claim, but they need to back it up by some kind of rationale. And finally, it would be best if the assertion and the reason were backed up by evidence from an expert. They have all three components that we think of as being a particularly strong argument. An assertion followed by a reason backed up by evidence from an expert. Now, if you're weighing arguments from the negative team against the affirmative team, for instance, and they both seem to be strong, well-reasoned arguments, one way to evaluate which one might be more consequential is to think in terms of magnitude, risk, and time frame, which is how we teach these debaters to think about big or more persuasive arguments. So magnitude would be how significant is the impact to the argument that's being made? Will there be kind of a major war? Will there be a lot of famine? Will there be a lot of lives saved, etc.? So that's magnitude. Second is risk. How likely is that scenario to happen? Because you can have a really big impact, but a low risk, and that diminishes its impact, right? And finally, time frame. So if something happens quite soon and is consequential, that is more persuasive perhaps to you than something that happens in 100 years, but is really consequential. So how large is something? How likely is it? And when does it occur? Magnitude, risk, and time frame. Thinking along those lines in conjunction with an assertion, reason, and evidence way of evaluating arguments can help you weigh things and convey your kind of reasoning when you write out your ballot and you submit it for these debaters to read and their coaches to read when they get home after the tournament. So in addition to assigning a winner and loser, as I said, you'll also be assigning speaker points. Like any good point-based system, ours is also inflated. So it's out of 30, but in fact, the kind of lowest point that we ask you to give is about a 27, and the highest kind of, what's a perfect speech would be a 30. You should be giving very few 30s, and hopefully, not too many 27s. And we do move in half point increments. So you can give it 27.5, 28.5, etc. Debaters can tie on the number point that you give them. So most people can have a 28, for instance, but they're also ranked 1 to 4 of the 4 debaters in the room, 1 being the debater who spoke best. While most people can have a 28, for instance, only one person can be 1, 2, 3, 4. That's how we kind of break things up. Once you've completed your ballot along those lines and you've given all of your verbal feedback to the debaters in the room, your round is over. You return your ballot, either your electronic ballot, hopefully, back to us. You click save, or if it's a paper ballot, you return it to the ballot table that you got it from, and then you wait for your next assignment. Thank you all so much for your help. We really couldn't do it without you, and we look forward to seeing you at the next AUDL tournament.